right, we are back with another episode of Nan Man's Nerd Corner. I'm, of course, Nan Man, and joined with me, as always, for our long-form content, we've got Jaime. How you doing, bud? We've been waiting for this episode for, like, a month now, has it been?
Yeah. It's been a good time coming. I think we talked about a bunch of different things we wanted to talk on podcasts, and this was definitely one of the things that we were most excited about. I think for me personally, talking about Spider-Man and Into the Spider-Verse was probably pretty close up there, because I was as hyped about that as I've been about playing, Diablo and the Diablo games in general. So yeah, pretty excited about today's podcast, honestly.
Oh, yeah. So, if you guys have missed our previous ones, we did talk about Across the Spider-Verse for our most recent long-form one. You guys can go back and check that out. Podcasts, of course, are available anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, so iTunes, Spotify, all that kind of good stuff. But this one is the big getting into gaming, talking about Diablo 4, which has been kind of the all-consuming passion in gaming, pretty much the gaming world in general. Like, streamers have been obsessed with it. I mean, pretty much all of our friends have been playing it. I mean, you look on like BattleNet, and everybody's been at least on it once or twice testing it out, because everybody has been kind of jumping. It's one thing I've noticed. It's like, this is one of those types of games that only comes around every so often, and it's really cool to see people experience this type of game, sometimes for the first time. Like, we have experienced this type of game previously in the past, but like, not everybody maybe played it Diablo 3 or Diablo 2 or Diablo 8. So like, it's cool to see people experience this hack and slash adventure and that exists out there, and see just how cool the genre is, or at least the Diablo universe is. But we got lots to talk about today. You want to give kind of a rundown of like kind of a navigation of what we've got planned for today's episode?
Sure. So I think one of the things we're going to talk about is just kind of we're going to start with talking about our previous experience with the Diablo games. So kind of as Nan has mentioned, I personally have really liked what they've done with Diablo 4. So as someone who's played Lost Ark, it has a lot of elements from that game incorporated into Diablo, but then it has the Diablo world and the Diablo storyline that we pretty much kind of grew up with. So, Nan and I have been playing Blizzard games for a very long time. Nan's a huge StarCraft guy. He's been playing, StarCraft for many, many years. I believe you played competitively as well, and you definitely broadcasted and were commentating a bunch of StarCraft tournaments and things like that. So Blizzard is just something that's very rooted in in who we are as gamers. It's essentially how I got started. I got introduced into Blizzard games by Nan and his brothers and everybody else who were playing together. So Diablo as a whole just has a lot of it's nostalgic for us, which is kind of a really big appeal to a lot of people who've been playing the game. But yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about Diablo as a whole, kind of our past experience with it. I'm gonna dive into what we thought about the story. We're going to talk a little bit about the gameplay, characters in general, what we've been playing.
Yep.
We're going to give you some fun statistical tips, where we're going to give you some fun statistics that are kind of sad and fun at the same time. And then we're also going to give you some tips and tricks we've been using, things we've been learning, things to help you kind of, get into the world of Sanctuary. And then I guess the last thing I'm going to say real quick is I think some of the things we're going to talk about are huge spoilers. So if you have not finished the campaign, there's certain things you don't want to know. Same as always, big spoilers ahead. Don't get upset or offended if you hear something you didn't want to hear. We're giving you the big spoiler warning ahead of time.
Right, and we try to release these spoiler-related episodes about a month after the release of the movie or the game or something like that, to give you guys time to go and experience it yourself. And not everybody is the hardcore grinders, right? We're not asking you to push and grind and rush the game. Like, I know a lot of people were like, I got to finish it in the first week it comes out, and I got to beat the campaign and do because like I was in that boat, so I get it. Like, but not everyone wants to play that way. Some people are playing it slow. Like, we got a buddy Deering that's still going through it, and he's just in like Act 4 right now is where he's starting out there. But he's doing the slow pacing and just like enjoying experiencing it. So I was like, everyone plays differently. But yeah, spoilers when we talk about the story. But there's going to be good information in this episode, even if you haven't finished the story, that it's worth listening all the way to the end there. So why don't we, let's dive into it, right?
Yeah. So Nan, the first, I'm gonna ask you a question this time. I'm gonna shift it a little bit. What is kind of your, if you want to tell the listeners your past experience with Diablo, and I would also love to hear some about like the play style and the classes and things you've enjoyed in the past, from starting with Diablo, Diablo 2, Diablo 3. I know Diablo 4 has really been one of the games where you've kind of taken a deep dive into the Diablo games, kind of like, I use the word deep dive carefully. We played a lot of Diablo 4. We're going to keep playing a lot of Diablo 4. It's a game that kind of sucks you in, but let's have it. Let's listen about your history with it.
Yeah. Like, I think, Diablo has been, like you talked about, we've been Blizzard fanboys for the longest time and been in the Blizzard universe, enjoying their different games over many, many, decades now. And Diablo 1 was my first intro into the Diablo universe, playing it back in the 90s. And, the first time I played it, I was horrible, like dying constantly, doing all that stuff. But at one point, we were able to get those old Mac computers that were like the clear plastic, colored plastic ones, or what are the cases that are basically just a monitor and it's like a whole thing, a whole setup. You don't need anything else, just plug in your mouse and keyboard to it. We had those at one point running the old Diablo game, and I remember playing, because in the original Diablo you get 3 classes, right? You get your kind of range character, your archer, you've got your wizard, and you've got your warrior. Now you can find tomes and books and learn spells as those characters. So I, have fond memories of basically creating a spell sword and creating a warrior as my class and finding all these books and stuff. So I had better certain spells that I had, like the Hydra spell. I had better magic stats on that than my brother, who was playing a wizard, and he was annoyed. That's like, then what's the point of me playing a wizard if you're gonna sit here? Because you could do these little tricks where you could like restart the game with your character and carry over certain things with it, certain stats and stuff like that. So you could do that. So like I played Diablo 1 back then, but not like the same intensity that I played in the other games. So more just like casual. Oh, it's hack and slash, just run around, kill things, and try to find books and make a spell sword. Diablo 2, played a little bit. Of course, played a little bit of the druid, played a little bit of the like assassin, till the necromancer was available. Then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna run around with skellies, and that's my jam. All about that. I wasn't as hardcore as some of my brothers and their friends. Really kind of grinding the Diablo 2 experience. Diablo 3 was a little bit different, right? I got access to the beta early on and got to stream that up and play that a little bit.
I was very jealous when you did, by the way.
I was very sad not getting access to a necromancer at first. I was like, all right, where's my pet class? I guess I'm going to be playing the witch doctor. And so it was fun to experience Diablo 3. And Diablo 3 had that kind of much more feel to the old school Diablo 1, Diablo 2, right? Kind of very railroaded, follow this path on the campaign, the storyline. I still enjoyed the Diablo 3 experience. When the expansion came out, I enjoyed it, got to play through, played the Necromancer. My wife and I have played Diablo 3 through the campaign and stuff like that. But I did seasons every now and again, but never really pushing them very hard, never really hardcore. Just sort of like, okay, a group of us are going to play a season together. Let's kind of play. I'll play the weekend, right? I'll do the season grind for the weekend, and then just kind of, I'll miss a couple of seasons, and then maybe like 6 months down the road, I'll play another season with a group, kind of thing. So like very different experience going into where Diablo 4, I've really latched on to some aspects of the game that are very different from the other 3 iterations of Diablo that I've liked a lot more, and of course, Necromancer's back, so why would I not? Why would I play anything else as my first character? But we'll get into it when we're talking later about our kind of characters that we're playing through for this experience. So I have a long history of Diablo, and not as hardcore as some players in some of the seasons or some of the stuff, but definitely have a lot of experience in the Diablo universe. But what about you? You've been playing pretty much just as long as I have, you know.
I have, yeah. So it's funny. I actually got into Diablo right about when Diablo 2 came out. So I missed the Diablo 1. I went back and played it, later, but I wasn't part of that. Like, oh man, this set's come out, I'm going to be part of it. I really got into Diablo during Diablo 2. Played Diablo 2, have played the Diablo 3, have played Diablo 2 Resurrected. I really, really enjoy what I really enjoy about the Diablo games are the ability to shift between single player and multiplayer, modes essentially. So you could grind the game and 100% be yourself, play whatever you want, do it yourself, or you can group up with a bunch of buddies and play. I traditionally have really enjoyed grindy games where the reward is just play until you find something. Right. And yeah, it can be really frustrating not to get the items that you need or not to have enough magic to find the actual crap that you need and continually finding the same POS item that you don't necessarily need. I think with these kind of games, and in Diablo in particular, have found kind of the story rather interesting, right? So the idea of angels and demons and this eternal war and them creating like we're tired of fighting, let's make a middle ground where angels and demons can kind of live together, and just how that plays into the conflict kind of really appealed to me. And then the idea of like the Nephilim and stuff, the Diablo games have always pulled lore from some really cool and interesting like biblical and other things that have kind of meshed in the story. And even with Diablo 4, we'll talk a little bit about the story here in a little bit, Lilith and things like that are stories from old books in the Bible. And Lilith is essentially, or was, Adam's first wife before Eve came along, and she rejected kind of the idea of everything, and she left, and multiple stories say what she ended up being. But her being brought into the story of Diablo and given this whole idea of like she's the mother of sanctuary, and she's essentially trying to end this conflict, I've always found really, really cool. I have also gravitated towards melee classes. Barbarian is a class that I've always really, really enjoyed. I particularly loved it in Diablo 2. And then when I started playing a little bit of Diablo 3 and then really got into Diablo 3, I played a lot of D3. Demon Hunter became just kind of the thing that was my go-to. Multi-shot. So it is so much fun. Multi-shot was really fun. The Impale build was really, really fun. Whirlwind Barb was another thing that I played a lot. Many years ago, when I was shifting from jobs, I took like a 3-week to a month break where I just like was giving myself that space to transition to the other job, and then I just basically did nothing but play Diablo. I pushed really hard. It was really cool. So that's the other appealing aspect for me for Diablo, is the ability to like create a build and try to push as high as you can, and then hit that ceiling, right? And then going, okay, what can I do differently to keep pushing forward? And one of the things we'll talk about here in a little bit is just, I think Diablo 4 has opened up a lot of possibilities for different builds, modifications to builds, and things like that. Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Diablo 2 a little bit more felt like you had to have specific items to make certain builds work, and you really couldn't modify it as much.
Yep.
Diablo 3, kind of the same thing. You needed particular items to make the builds work, and you were kind of like pigeonholed into that particular item to make a build work.
Like these are the optimal builds that you should be going, and so you need to be seeking out these specific things to make sure you're pushing that.
Yep. And I think the one thing that Diablo 4 has done well is it's kind of opened up a more of a funnel for people to be able to say, okay, this is a good build, but what can I do to modify that build? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that here later. But yeah, I've enjoyed Diablo for many, many years. I love that style of game. I'm a huge RPG fan, and this has aspects of an RPG game, of like the grinding for items, reputation, things like that. So it really appeals to me, and I just think it has, mechanically speaking, each of the classes feel unique enough and fun where they do feel different when you're playing it. So if you play a barbarian, you feel like a melee person beating the shit out of things. If you're playing a ranged demon hunter, you feel like an archer and things like that. So they've done a really cool job throughout the history of the game with the character design to make them feel unique to what you're playing, so you don't feel like you're playing oh, this is just a barb with this, or this is something with something else.
Right.
It's each
Each
class
class
is different.
feels unique
Yes.
to it, and it's not. Yeah. I agree with that, and they have done a good job with the initial stuff, and you know
Yes.
it's going to be interesting to see what like, because I know a lot of people were like, "Where's our Crusader? Where's our Paladin? Where's but it's like there's going to be expansions. It's coming, guys. Just you wait. It'll happen. But I think with the initial classes that they picked, I was very happy with the choices that they made for it.
Yes, and it's funny too because I'll just throw a random fun statistic for you. I within the first week, and I think to this day, Sorceress is the most played class in Diablo 4. Interestingly enough, I think if Paladin had been released, Paladin probably would have been the most played class.
I could see that, like the safety net and shielding that the Paladins used to have in the old games and stuff. That makes sense to me that would be the case. I mean, I think a lot of people, I feel like gravitated for Sorcerer for just the pure power behind it. Plus, you had that escapability. You could blink and be able to run and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know. It's like Sorcerer and Rogue felt like the I can nuke things down, and it feels great that there's nothing that I can't kill. It had that feeling whenever I would play those classes.
Yeah, definitely. And then the idea that you're like this magician or spellcaster that can like move around and cast spells also like visually has a very appealing side to it. So you're like, oh, Blizzard looks really cool, or Meteor, like this giant fucking flaming ball comes out of the sky and obliterates everything. Just, I think also, just aesthetically and mechanically speaking, Sorcerer just has a lot to offer anyone who's trying to get immersed into the lore. But yeah, what I would love to hear from you, Nan, is kind of what you thought about the Diablo 4 story, and then maybe compare it a little bit back to the past stories, how you felt about the lore in general, or if you've enjoyed the Diablo 4 campaign compared to the others. Just a little bit of kind of your thoughts in general now that you've played all throughout the games. What did they do well? What did they not do well? And what could they have done a little bit better or differently?
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll start out again. Spoilers in case you have not finished it. We're getting into the spoiler part of it. I was extremely invested in Act 1, and I experienced it during the beta for Diablo 4, like, because we did the early access beta stuff and got to like, all right, we get to play to level 20, essentially finish Act 1. Right? They gave us that, and that's how the Diablo 3 experience was as well. It's like, all right, you get to this point where it's like, okay, you get to experience a little bit of what's going on in the world for the beta, and so it's like I knew what to expect, but I was, even after playing through it in the beta, going through it again, it's like I was extremely invested in it because it's like, all right, we're dealing with Rothma's prophecy, right? The first necromancer, and I'm playing as a necromancer. I'm like, I'm all in. Tell me more. I want to just live in this experience. Let's go. So I think I was very heavily invested in like from the beginning, and it could have been just because I was playing a necromancer and the lore aspect of it, of like this, we're learning from the first necromancer this whole prophecy that's going to affect Sanctuary and all this stuff. So like I was really into that initially, and then it's like the path that it took, because again, you could bob and weave and change your path and which way you went, which I thought was really cool compared to the previous Diablos, where it's like it felt more open world in that regard of you can choose which path you go to complete. And I, on one of my secondary characters that is playing the campaign, I did that of go, okay, I'm gonna start and I'm going to go over here and hang out with the druids first, and then I'm going to go do and figure out Rothma's prophecy, and then I'm going to go here and do like so I did that kind of bounce around and experienced it a little bit differently the second time. But so I was immediately like invested in it, and I think the beginning acts definitely felt a lot more of like, all right, we're going to explain things, set everything up, and then it goes, okay, now we're in like a chase sequence for like the later acts, and we're really chasing down, there's of course still trying to follow Lilith pretty much the entire story. That's like the main overarching story, is what's going on with Lilith. We got to chase her down, stop her from causing havoc and messing everything up, and then it's like, I don't know, it became very cool of like, all right, the way that they set up the story for it, of kind of still putting that big arc of angels versus demons. Like, we get to interact with angels in the beginning, we get to interact, of course, with Lilith in the beginning, so it's like it's got a lot of, you know, ways to draw you in. I'm interested to see if people who play Druid were as invested in the Druid aspect of it, when you're like running around and, you know, the like old spirits and stuff like that. What is that, act 2-ish? You know, that stuff over on the side there. I don't know, like, because I felt more invested at the beginning with that whole Rothma stuff. I don't know if Druids felt the same way, or if they were just like, I don't care. Keep going. Let's fight these bosses. Let's get to the next stuff. So I don't know. That's one thing but it's like, I was very happy with it. I know there was a lot of confusion from some players at the end, like, you know, post end credit scenes and stuff like that, but we can get into it in a little bit. But the initial stuff, the first couple acts, how'd you feel about it? Were you because I feel like the first 3 acts are definitely separate from the rest of the game, right?
Yeah. So it's I'm glad to hear that, honestly, from you as well, because I think I think the way that the acts were set up in a way to kind of, it was a slow burn, right? It was take your time, enjoy the story, kind of figure it out. I think a lot of people, I heard mixed reviews. I've seen mixed reviews. People were like, oh, the story was good. Others were like, man, this sucked. I just wanted to get to the end game, blah this, blah that. I think there's a natural like RPG aspect to this kind of game, so there has to be a story. I've played it a lot because of the story, just the concepts and the idea and the fact of what your character kind of represents. Because you can kind of throw anybody into any scenario and be like, this is what you are. And then, you know, we've talked about this, I believe, previously on our podcast about like Master Chief in Halo. And people enjoyed Halo because of the play style, but some people also enjoy Halo because you're playing as Master Chief and following the story through his eyes and understanding kind of what's going on is a big appeal to the game. Sure, the combat is fun. Sure, the multiplayer is fun, but the idea of being a Spartan, particularly Master Chief, is part of that immersing yourself in the story. And I think we're always going to have split views and split opinions about that with these games. I personally really like the story. I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting. There's only one part I kind of found like a little kind of like irritating, or man, that was with Lorath and the Tree of Whispers. I felt like that was kind of like either progress the story or rush it to be reckless kind of scenario, because it's like, yeah, they told us what they're, he goes to the Tree of Whispers, gets the answer he needs, but then we go to the village that we were going to go to, or the town we were going to go to anyways, and find out what we needed to kind of independently a part of what he did. So outside of that, thought it was cool.
So you didn't like the going to the Tree of Whispers and then find like, go to this coffin, go to the underworld, experience that stuff?
No, I liked that part of the story. Okay. What I didn't like was Lorath jumping to the Tree of Whispers afterwards and going, hey, I'll offer you my head for what Lilith is going to do next, kind of thing. I just
okay.
It was like we don't have another choice, and I'm like, that's for me personally, that was a bit of a tough sell. I feel like you still had other options before you have to go fucking doom yourself for eternity. Yeah. I get the importance of wanting to get there, but like, I don't know. I felt like it maybe I just read the situation incorrectly, but it didn't feel dire enough to make that sacrifice at that point.
I feel like, I agree where it's like they didn't put enough emphasis on how dire of a situation it was. Yes. I think because it like if you're thinking about it, it's like, all right, they really had reached their last lead. There's nothing else left. What how else are they going to be able to get to the next stage? And I think they could have painted it more of how much of a desperate move it was, where they kind of just sort of like glossed over. Oh, okay, I'm gonna go do this. Like,
right.
This is just kind of the way it is. But yeah, I can see that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I thought the other thing that I found really interesting and I like about the story it's that blurred line between good and evil. And I think that's something that Diablo does really, really well. I think also the idea of like the character, regardless of who you choose to play, or what class you decide to play, or however you follow the story, at the end the character has a choice, but the character passes that choice on to someone that they trust. And I think there's a big emphasis with these games about, united we stand. Nan remembers that's an old Yu-Gi-Oh card that almost every deck ran back in the day. But the idea that like together we're more than we were if we were by ourselves. Yeah, this character has all this awesome power, and you're in there blowing up demons and fucking destroying Lilith and Elias and all these other people, but you also are humble enough to accept help from others, and you did it as a team, because that's the emphasis of the story, is everyone had a part to play, and you were able to beat these unstoppable odds against you because you all were together.
Right, you had Lorath.
You had Lorath, exactly. Right. You had everyone working together. And they were important, right? Each of them were important.
Yes.
And the idea of like Lilith and Inarius creating this world and like going against it, and then Inarius's like character of like, oh, he's an angel, he's a whatever, and then at the end where he's like, you belong in hell, because he gets destroyed by her. The idea that he just needed to undo what he did to get in good graces was very interesting, right? He's like, once I kill my only son and kill Lilith or whatever, I get back in the heavens. And it's like, no, she says it. She's like, we made a choice and they can't look past that. So it's like this like crazy, like almost, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like he made it, as the Lord goes, all the cultists and the lords of hell had influence over Sanctuary, so he kind of made a church to kind of combat that. Not for the good of it, but just to be like, no, we need to fight them back so I can get what I want.
Yeah.
So it's like
we're getting back to that eternal conflict, angels versus demon. I need this church to help back me up to kill these demons.
But Inarius wasn't, in my eyes, and what I thought they did a very good job of telling that story, he wasn't necessarily a good guy just because he was an angel. And that was a thing that I have really enjoyed from all of these games, was always the idea that just because you're from one side or from the other doesn't mean you're necessarily good, and it doesn't mean you're necessarily evil. That's quote unquote what you're depicted as, but I feel like each of those characters were blurring those lines in between. That's what I really enjoy about the Diablo games, because they do that quite often with their storytelling. At least how I feel.
I agree with that. Now, talk to me about the whole Soul Stone stuff. End of the game, Nyrel, I'm going to trap Mephisto in the Soul Stone. I'm going to basically take up the mantle of the Wanderer, which is something that, if you were familiar with old games like Diablo 1 into Diablo 2, Diablo 2 was very heavily influenced by the Wanderer. For those that don't know, the original Wanderer, basically took on Diablo himself inside of his being, and went and tried to free the rest of the prime evils. Then became referred to as the Dark Wanderer, and just left a wave of destruction in his path to try to kind of free them. But now Nyrel is kind of the new Wanderer, somebody that has a Soul Stone, has one of the prime evils with her on this journey, and it's going to be just kind of a path of destruction behind her as she travels across, across the world, across the sea and stuff like that. But what do you think about the whole Soul Stones and the aspect that they're going to be? I mean, it's a continual story. They've done every Diablo game, so it made perfect sense to me that they would kind of say, hey, we're going to continue to incorporate it into here, leading up to there's going to be an expansion, there's going to be DLC, there's going to be something that's going to continue on Nyrel's story, they're going to continue with this Soul Stone story. But if you've played the other games, like, oh, we've killed Mephisto, so there's so much to it. But what's your opinions on like the end stuff and Soulstone and stuff?
No, it's interesting, because it's like some people get rather irritated by the fact that they're quote unquote repeating the story, but I think that's kind of at its core what the story's about. So I really enjoyed that last cutscene, and I really kind of enjoyed the choice that Nyrel made. I think it's funny because it also kind of emphasizes that whole idea of like doing what you believe is good doesn't always necessarily mean it's the right thing, and it isn't always going to have positive outcomes because of it, just because you thought it was the right thing to do. So at that moment in time, her trapping him was the right idea, but believing that she could get away from everything and not have the evil leak out is just kind of that misguided, like, I'm strong enough to do this, despite not understanding what she has and what she's going to have to deal with. And that's traditional with the Diablo games in general. Like, everyone thinking that we can do this. Oh, we can. It was in Diablo 4 with the church and Inarius and all the followers. Yeah, we can beat all the denizens of hell, and then they get obliterated.
Yeah. Surprise! You guys can.
Surprise! There's a lot of demons down here. Hello. So that idea of like everyone being able to handle it, and that's the thing. It's interesting because like Nyrel and all of them together, they work so well together. They fight off Lilith. They finish what they set out to get started, and then she kind of gets away from the pack and tries to do her thing alone, which is kind of away from the general message of we need to stick together and figure it out. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there'd be no sequels or DLC or anything without the story going in that direction. But I wasn't bothered by it. I kind of half and half expected it. I was like, she's not going to go. She's going to do her own thing. I kind of already felt like I was like, I played all the other games. I already know that she's gonna disappear, and she's probably gonna leave some fucking note somewhere in like a magical sealed door or something like that, and that's gonna be that. So yeah, it didn't shock me. I expected it, and I'd be curious to find out what happens next. Honestly, with her, and it'd be sad to see her get corrupted by that very evil, and then we have to put her down because that's something we've had to do a lot in previous games.
Right. And the pacing of it, it's like, because she has Mephisto, right, Lord of Hatred, like there's going to be hatred following her, and there's all those cults of hatred and stuff that are already in the game, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts things. But it's like she's proved her resilience and being such a strong character in this game that it's like, I feel like already going into it, we're all rooting, okay, maybe she can find a way to kind of fight against that hatred for as long as possible and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm definitely invested and interested to see what the next chapter in this story is for Diablo 4. So
of course,
I don't know. I've been liking it. I like the campaign. I've played through it one time. I'm in the process of playing through it a second time. Just about to start Act 4 for the second time. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think it was a good story. I could see why some people made that statement of, wow, it's like 6 acts or whatever. It's like, oh, it feels so long. I just want to get to the end game. I can see if you're speeding through, it can feel that way, and you're just trying to get to like the destination. But if you're taking your time and experiencing the world and experiencing the story, is very good, and it's worth it.
Yeah, I'd say a majority of the people who play, and I know this is a general assumption, but a good amount of the people who play Diablo don't necessarily play it for the story. They play it for the contents of the game and the mechanics of the game. So I kind of with you on that one, where I understand how some people would feel like, oh, you're spoon feeding these 6 acts, and I just want to like take a bite out of it entirely and be done with it, But in their defense, once you finish the campaign, you have the option to skip it, going for alts and things like that, and then it's just an open world game that you can go and explore the things that you want. So I understand frustration of having to go through 6 acts for everybody, but at the same time, they're only making you do once. It's part of the game. It's how they justify charging $1 million for the game. It's like they just kind of have to do it, and you have to do the same essentially.
I think that's it for the story. Is there anything else story related that you feel like we missed?
No, I think we hit everything. I think what we're going to probably spend a good portion of time talking about is just the gameplay and the characters and how you've been feeling about things and go from there. I know you've put in a lot of time on the Necromancer. Necromancer's had a lot of ups and downs, as we've seen it through the beta. They were the best character when we played the beta. Then for some reason Blizzard decided to nerf them into the ground, and then they became the literal worst character ever. Then they fixed things again for the open beta, or the what was it, the stress test beta that they did.
Yes.
And they felt a little bit better. They've gotten some buffs. So yeah, tell me about the gameplay, how you've liked Necromancer, and what's next for you, I should say.
Yeah, so like I already talked about, I played the beta, and I didn't play Necromancer during the beta. I specifically played a rogue during that time because I wanted to fully experience the Necromancer the first time in like a full playthrough. I didn't want to start, get invested in my character and then it get deleted and then I have to start over. I was like, at least a rogue. I know I'm going to make a rogue at some point, and so it's like I'll play that for the beta. So my Necromancer is my character that my first one to complete the game, the one that is my main, I guess you could say. I'm level like 63. You were able to help me get access to world tier 4, but it's still just like right outside of my reach at the moment. Because I'm going pet build, so it's like as long as I have my pets out, I have no problem. I'm killing things, and some of the stuff in World Tier 4 are just wrecking my pets quicker than I can deal with things. So I'm like right on that cusp of World Tier 3, World Tier 4. Like Tier 3 is too easy, Tier 4 is too hard. So I'm like trying to grind a little bit of levels so then I can just jump to Tier 4 at this point. But yeah, I'm going pet build for it. I'm loving it. It's basically just all AoE damage that I'm trying to do. I just switched over from Decrepify to Iron Maiden and trying that for just a little burst of extra damage, which has been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying that in there. But the ult I'm going for is that like Bone Storm. It's amazing. It like survivability. I get a shield off it. It lasts so long because of the aspects that I've got, which we'll talk about aspects a little bit later. But like I have 13 minions that run around with me. I am an army. Like everything that I want from the Necromancer, I'm getting in this game. At least from that aspect of like I have a whole legion of dead bodies behind me, helping me to kill things. So that feels great. And every time that I group up with another player to do dungeons or do the kind of later tier stuff, it feels great. Like it's I feel like my class complements other people's classes very well for what I've experienced. So that's kind of my main. I'm loving it. I have a rogue that I'm playing through. I'm 29 on them, and they are not doing the campaign. So I'm just kind of doing the world events, doing dungeons, doing side quests, and just kind of doing that grind, and just kind of hopping on there, every couple of days or so. Just I'll do a level or two, and then pop off and do mainly stuff on my Necromancer because I'm just having so much fun on my Necromancer. The rogue's fun. I really want to try to do range stuff for it, but it's just the melee stuff is so strong. And it's just like, I don't know, just like shadow step and dashing around and twirling blades, and like it's a lot of fun. The rogue's a lot of fun. You do a lot of damage. It's hard to go from the Necromancer into the rogue sometimes because I'm used to being back a little bit and just launching AoE spells and stuff, and then I'm like, oh no, I have to be like up here and it's dangerous and I'm getting hurt and I gotta pop potions a lot more. So that's a lot of fun. And then I've got my sorcerer that I'm playing through with Deering. We're doing the campaign together because he hasn't finished the campaign yet. So we're going through. We're on World Tier 4. We just started for there, but I'm doing kind of fire stuff with that, like very heavily into the Hydra build, the flame wall, things like that. Incinerate. I'm just like spending all my mana popping up 2 hydras at once and just kind of burning everything down. It's a lot of fun. But in all these kind of range classes that I'm playing, with the exception of rogue, is kind of like the hybrid, right? Because I do have a range attack there. Like I have the hungering arrow, whatever it's called in this game. I can't remember, but the one that like ricochet shot maybe.
Honestly, rogue is the one thing that I started on and didn't play enough to remember enough about.
Yeah, right. It's a fun class. It's like they're all fun, but I prefer the range stuff definitely in this game. But I the Necromancer is great, top tier. I've even I've joked a lot and people made fun of me for this, but I've even been like, you know what? I could make another Necromancer and just this will be my blood Necromancer and this will be my pet Necromancer, and then I have 2 Necromancers and it'll be fine. I don't have to worry about switching my stuff. I have 2 Necromancers, but I don't know. I think I need to at least level up my other characters first before I commit and get that second Necromancer there. But we'll see. So what are the classes you're playing? What do you got going on?
I fully expect you, by the way, to make a second Necromancer when the season of leveling thing is, because at that point, like, we've all played the game, we've already know what we're doing, so it's like it'll be the leveling aspect won't matter as much because you know how to get to end game. There might be special season perks and things like that. So like with the seasons, they've talked about armors and different sets and stuff. So there might be really cool armors that appeal to certain classes that are unlocked through special feats in the seasons. I know that they've mentioned that they're not going to do, I think for the first or second seasons, they're not going to do any sort of leveling thing. I think it might just be the first season they're not going to do any leveling. And then the second season will be a start a character from scratch and take it to max level,
like the previous seasons of,
exactly
in Diablo 3 and stuff.
Yeah. But I 100% fully expect you to play a second Necromancer at one point.
I'm sure.
Just because, again,
I think if you look at my character list in Diablo 3,
it's a lot of Necromancers.
It goes like Witch Doctor, which was the first character I played. It went Demon Hunter was the second character, and then I played a Barbarian when I was queued up with my wife, and then the rest of it, there's like 5 Necromancers.
Yeah.
It is. It just started going down the list, because then it was just like, all right, of course I had like the Bane Necromancer that I played when the expansion came out. I was like, all right, that's it, I'm playing that. And then every season that I played, I was just like, yeah, I'm playing Necromancer. Why would I play anything else?
Yeah,
so that's probably what this list is going to look like too in Diablo 4.
Yeah, it's funny. So to your question, I've basically played everything except for Necromancer. Necromancer is really the one thing that I got one to about 30, and then I played it in the beta, liked it in the beta. Necro just got, it's been through a roller coaster. It's been an emotional roller coaster for me to watch Necro go from like S+++ tier to like F tier to back to B. Then they're like, well, they need another buff. They're back at A. Currently, they're back to S because Bone Spear is one of the top pushing builds that you can do for Nightmare Dungeons. So it's like Necro just has like, it's been an emotional roller coaster. Blood, which is traditionally what I've loved about Necro. I'm kind of on the other side of the coin. Nan loves the pet builds. I'm more of the like bone and blood Necromancer. Like some of my favorite builds in D3 were the the blood pool build where you just like blah 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 blah, like spewing blood everywhere. I don't know what that says about me, but I love that about Necro. That got nerfed into the ground. So Necro, definitely the last character. I beat the campaign with the Rogue first. Rogue's damage output is disgusting. I know it tapers off and it falls off towards late game, but at the beginning, if you're trying to speed play, it is the fastest and most disgusting class to play. I mean, you don't even need a lot to just truck through things. I think I killed, on my Rogue, I killed the Capstone Dungeon boss at like 44 or 45 with like mediocre crap gear.
Yeah.
And just went into the next tier like, oh, okay, cool, no problem at all. I'm a Rogue.
I just do so much damage. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the Druid, you're just like pulverized. All my spirits got pulverized. Almost 50 minutes later, I finally killed the boss because he can't kill me, and I definitely can't kill him. But yeah, I've played Barbarian, Sork, and Druid have been the 3 that I've played. They're all at 70 or above. I've had a problem with Diablo where I haven't really been able to pick a character. I've just kind of been like, this is cool. And then, oh no, this is shiny. And then, oh, this is also shiny. And I just keep like going back and forth between all the shiny things.
Well, I think there's something to be said, though, that you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast of like that grind is very appealing in this, and it feels good that you can go, oh, each character feels unique enough. Like would be different if like there's not much difference between the class. So that but it's like, oh, you know what, the barbarian feels very different from the rogue, from the druid, for like everything feels different enough that you're enjoying each uniqueness of the class that wants you to keep playing and grinding and stuff like that.
Well, and that's the thing that I've really enjoyed about the game. So like each of the classes have a special ability that they unlock at level 15. So Nan for Necromancer was Book of the Dead. It gives him the ability to control the types of minions that he summons. Sorcerer gets enchanted abilities that empower their spells. Barbarian gets different weapon techniques for bonuses. So it's really cool to have seen him add that next layer of customizability. And then this is going to be a question that I'm going to ask Nan to kind of answer next. But I've really enjoyed the customization aspect of the game. And that's the thing that's cool and kind of interesting about Diablo, is that at its basic fundamental level, it's a very like basic hack and slash, just get in there, beat up things, and that's how you play the game. But then as you kind of progress through the game, it has further layers that are more complex in nature by the systems that are implemented. So in Diablo, here's how you play. That's level 1, right? Level 2 is your skill tree. How you customize your abilities, what powers you get, what synergies they have. And then what they've added for Diablo 4 is the next tier of that is the Paragon board, which are these giant cubes with different power-ups that you can move around and twist. And there's preferred builds by some of the best streamers that have had a lot of time to play and progress the game. But there isn't a perfect formula. And even now that the game's been out for like a month and some change, people are still finding ways to improve it. And that's the cool aspect of it. I think my struggle with the game personally has been I'm the kind of person that likes to see the end game builds and experience them. And a lot of the end game builds for a lot of classes don't happen until quote unquote that end game. So you have to get to about 70 plus to really be like, okay, I can get this build online, and then I can do this online. I think that's what I liked about Diablo 3 is with the seasons and how they made leveling super fast. You could get to that build rather quickly, and then you would know within a couple of days if you liked it or not. With Diablo 4, it's like, no, you got to do some grinding to get there before you can experience it. Barbarian's been really fun. The Hoda Barb, which is what I've been playing, going around boosting myself with shouts, which from Diablo 2 Shout Barbarian was one of my favorite things to play anyway. So to have a build incorporated with, Whack-A-Mole from Diablo 3 has been really, really fun. Sorceress has been equally fun. Again, visually speaking, and the idea of being a spellcaster and a sorceress or a sorcerer.
Are you on fire, ice? Where have you settled? Because I know you've been tweaking and changing and trying to find what you like right now. But where are you settled at this?
So I was currently ice, or I should say I was ice up until the point where I found the teleport chest that stuns when it pulls things. That's what I needed to be able to make fire and meteor play. So this is where kind of the game doesn't necessarily struggle in a sense, but I think people get in the thought process that like, oh, I need to be this to be able to get to the end game, and it's like, or to push really, really high dungeons, and then people get creative and they make the other builds kind of work. It just means, I think one of the things that would be a tip for me is that Diablo is, just because a build isn't necessarily the easiest to push into doesn't mean it's not eventually going to get there. It also doesn't mean that if you play with the board and do things, you can make it push a lot higher. So like, Whirlwind Barb just cleared a level 100 and killed the boss recently, and people didn't even think that was possible. And I believe it was a Korean player who just did that feat on because Whirlwind Barb has just gotten nerfed. It just like every patch or every opportunity just got the nerf hammer slapped right on its face. But they used a weapon that for example, I thought it was a piece of shit, so I disenchanted that unique weapon, and now I'm regretting that choice.
I needed that.
So it's cool to see that people are coming up with builds. They're going to be, modifying builds. Things are getting better. Ice Shard Sorceress has been a popular build since the beginning of the game, and even that's still getting modified. I mean, There were versions early on where it's like, oh, you need Deep Freeze or Inferno to make it work. Group everything together. And then people were like, no, you need to do this. Like, put a Frozen Orb into it. And then people were like, no, do Blizzard is the newest thing. And then there was a Blizzard build that was invented out of that. And then they were like, no, mix Blizzard and Ice Shards together. So I think that's the other cool thing is in playing the game and finding out the different things, playing around with it, having the ability to customize things makes it more appealing. That's what makes me want to play different classes. Is, you know, I play kind of all three because they feel different enough for me where it's like each of them have something I want and I want to experience that from time to time. So it's difficult for me. Like, I'm all in on Barbarian because I just want to hammer everything to death. Or it's also really hard for me to go, I just want to freeze things or drop a meteor and stuff all the time. Or the druid that shapeshifts and turns into, you know, a bear or a werewolf. Like, there are times that I want those different things, and I have multiple characters because of that, but it's cool to have that ability to kind of move around between those characters and be able to play what I want to feel or what I feel like playing at that time.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
But yeah, Sorcerers, I'd say right now Druid and Barb are probably the top two things I'm playing. Sorcerers is kind of a third, and I just kind of flip between those three, just whatever I feel like pushing on that day. With the buffs to Nightmare Dungeons, it's made leveling a little bit less painful. So you can kind of do like a little bit here, a little bit that, and kind of move them all along at the same pace.
Nice. I like that. So, I've lost track of where we are in our pacing of things. Are we into the tips for players / end game?
We are.
Like what to do? Like, are we ready to get into kind of that discussion?
Yeah, we're there. I just wanted to. What I'll do real quick is give one fun fact for everybody.
Yes, I'm excited for these.
Yeah,
these are great.
So the Blizzard team released their Diablo 4 facts for the first week. Now, some of these people are going to listen to these and say, "Wow, that's really impressive. That's really cool." I had mixed feelings. I was like, this is really cool stats, but also very depressing stats. So in the first week of playing Diablo 4, there were a total of 276 million hours played of Diablo worldwide. Now, that equates to about 31,500 years of Diablo being played worldwide in a week.
That's nuts.
It's nuts. It's a cool stat, but Dan and I kind of talked a little bit about that. It's also depressing because that's 31,000 and a half years that we could have solved a lot of other issues.
It's like if the collective world spent as much time on a problem, we would have a lot of better things and things would be fixed. But we decided we're going to go live in Sanctuary for 31,000
years in a week of Sanctuary instead of other things. There were a total of 2.73 billion monsters killed. There were a total of 166,960 parties created. Wow. There were 316,991,632 player deaths.
Ooh.
There were so this is interesting for me personally. There were only 429,792 deaths in PvP, which not as many
people are PvP.
They're not, but that number was a little bit surprising to me because I didn't think that many people would be PvPing, to be honest with you. I expected that number to be much lower. I thought everyone would be all in on PvE and no one would be PvPing because Diablo has not been a traditionally PvP-oriented game.
I feel like I think that number is as high maybe because a lot of the PvPers are people that are in groups.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like and I haven't experienced as much of the PvP stuff, but I feel like the people that are running over there are people that are in groups because if you're running around solo and you run into 2 people or 3 people or 4, like you're already at a disadvantage. So it's like, I don't know, the PvP aspect seems fun if you have a group of people.
Unless you're a Thorns Barbarian, in which case they're all going to kill each other before they're going to kill themselves before they kill you. It doesn't matter. There were a total of 5,792,063 deaths by the Butcher. A lot of those were me.
I was going to say, you have the Butcher curse. You've passed it on to Devon. Now she's got the Butcher curse. Yeah. I've experienced the Butcher 3 times, including the beta and since the game's come out. 2 of those were with Jaime, and one of them was with Devon. So I don't know. It's like by myself, I'm fine. Running in dungeons,
doesn't even
no
want to
problem.
talk to you. Yeah.
He says, you keep doing your thing, man.
Yeah. You're doing good. He's like, oh, you're a necromancer. Yeah, you're fine. Do your thing.
No problem.
Yeah. The last couple of those statistics I'll give everybody is they were within the first week, 6,263 players hit level 100. We only had 163 players reach level 100 in hardcore, which brave souls to play hardcore. Yeah. First week of a launch game that is going to have bugs and issues. People are really upset. I've seen a lot of streamers like basically cry on stream that their character was dying for disconnect issues. Brave soul, and more power to you if you made it to level 100 on a hardcore character the first week. And then the most played class, sorceress or sorcerer.
Yep, makes sense.
Yep.
Makes sense.
So
I like those statistics. Those are some good ones. Like a lot of little fun tidbits and stuff in there. Yeah, congratulations to all the people that pushed and got the hardcore level 100. I was watching a couple of streamers that were doing it. But yeah, the first week of a launch is hard. Like there was disconnects, there was queues to get in.
Yeah.
It had some rubber banding issues that a lot of people were complaining about. I felt like a lot of the console gamers were also having a harder time than the PC gamers, or at least that it could be my perception of it. And I have a couple of groups of friends that are playing exclusively on console, and they were just like, maybe it's because we are used to a Blizzard launch of there's going to be queues, there's going to be issues, like it's going to happen, and being on a console, maybe you're not as used to that. Right? You're not, and so maybe that part of, but it felt like they had it harder than we did. It felt like like my queues that I had, other than that one big day that I know the servers were down for like multiple hours for everybody. The queues that I had were 15 minutes to 30, 45 minutes maximum for me. I didn't have too bad of time where people were like, I'm in queue for like an hour and I'm waiting to get into the game. And then I get in the game and I'm rubber banding and it's unplayable. And, that was some of the stuff I was hearing within that first week. But all of that's gone away. There's no server issues. You're not waiting in queue anymore. I don't know. The game, I haven't heard any more complaints in regards to that since the launch week, which is normal.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how it is.
And in Blizzard's defense, traditionally, they make games for the most part for PC, right? That's what they've been known to make games for and do. So they had a global launch not only for their PC game, because most of the time what we see is vice versa, right? Either games are launched on console and then months later ported into PC, or they're launched on PC and months later they're ported into console. Very seldom do we see a lot of games where they're both launching at the same time on multiple platforms at the same time because of things like this. Console gamers I know were having a terrible time. I also mean no disrespect by my following words, but I personally do not like playing this kind of game on a console. It just feels weird. I understand that some will, and that's what's accessible to them, and some prefer it. Cool, more power to you. But I think the idea that this was going to run well on consoles as well as PC with all the problems PC players were having as is was just a very unrealistic expectation set by Blizzard, in my personal opinion. I think if they knew that it was going to implode on itself, then they definitely didn't let anyone know. Like it was just we didn't realize, but part of me tells me that they knew this shit was going to kind of hit the fan a little bit, so you got to kind of push through it. But I think if it's cool with you, Nan, we'll do kind of the last little part of the segment, which is tips, things that you want to talk about, and then little couple things that you would like to see with the game going forward, and then we can go from there. I'd love to kind of see what you're thinking. I don't know if you've read anything about or you've seen any of the Diablo 4 developer thing where they answered questions and things like that, some things you might be looking forward to. So just kind of a roundup of kind of tips and things that you look forward to with the game. Cool,
yeah. So let's go into the tips for players, because I know there are people, we talked at the beginning of the show, this is, a lot of people's first time experiencing this game. Maybe they never played the other Diablos, or they haven't played this hack and slash. It's an ambush mechanic style game where you go around a corner that you just cleared, and then there's a swarm of mobs coming from that same area you just cleared, or you open a chest and guys pop out, or you're in a dungeon and Butcher comes busting through the door to kill you, right? It's an ambush game. It's gonna happen. You're gonna get ambushed. So jump scares I guess can happen, especially with Butcher, but there are some aspects that you might not have known that we're gonna kind of rapid fire go through tips and tricks. You mentioned about the class specific quests, right? You hit level 15, stop what you're doing. If you haven't finished the campaign, you're playing the campaign the first time, stop the campaign for a second, go do your class specific quest, because it's going to make your class better. It's worth it. Doesn't or 20 or whatever level, I think 15 to 20 I think is the window or something like that. But
yep.
Somewhere around there, go do that. It's worth it. You can mark locations on your map, and it will create a little red pathway for you to follow as the kind of most efficient path to follow to get to that location. I know on the PC, you just kind of right-click on the map, press M, open your map, right-click on the spot you want to go to, and close your map, and there's a little pathway that you can follow in your mini-map. And you just go, okay, I can run over there and go do that. I don't know what the button is on the console. Sorry, console players. You're going to have to figure that out yourself.
How dare you, man?
I was I didn't do enough research for that much, but I'm I'm not playing on console, so I don't care enough. But it's a huge, benefit. Worth it if you didn't know about that. That's a great thing to be able to learn and be able to do. Don't forget to upgrade your potions. All right, level 1, 10, 20, 30, 45, 60, 70, 80, and 90 are the levels that you can level up your potions, both increasing the number of potions that you can carry, as well as the effectiveness of the potions. I know that there was a point in the middle or so of while I was just grinding the campaign that I forgot to, and then I came back, I was like, oh my gosh, I could just get a bunch of potion levels here. And so the upgrades to your potions carry over to other characters. There was one thing I noticed that when I was playing, I completed the game on my Necromancer, and then I was playing with Deering, and he's running around. He's like, I got 3 potions right now. And I'm like, I got 9 potions. I'm not as worried.
And that's not enough.
Sometimes it's not enough. Yeah. So it's that's, don't forget to upgrade your potions. Bonus XP from elixirs. All those herbs that you're gathering throughout the game make elixirs. Yes, you could make some that are specific to benefits for you, right? You can do, I want more armor, I want more critical strike, I want more damage to undead or demons. Or you could make very specific ones, or you could just go, what herbs do I have the most of? Here's a shadow resist one. I'm not going to be fighting anything that does shadow damage, but I have the most herbs for this. Make elixirs. They last for 30 seconds. You get 5% XP bonus or something like that. Somewhere around there. You get XP bonus for 30 minutes. So pop an elixir, grind it out. I did not use any elixirs the first time I played through the campaign until after I beat the campaign, and then I started popping elixirs from that point, because I was like, I don't care as much. I'm just trying to enjoy the story the first time I played it. So my playthrough experience was a little bit different, but people were trying to level and grind, pop those elixirs. They're definitely worth it. Let's see.
One thing about the elixirs too, real quick. If you're trying to push content that is above your level or harder than what you should be trying to do, the elixirs do make a bit of a difference. So for Torment for Torment 4 or Tier 4, one of the bosses you have to go in a capstone dungeon is you have to fight Elias's Shadow of Torment or whatever, and a lot of what he does is fire damage. So if you're going in at the specific level that you're supposed to kill it, then yeah, it's fine. Nothing's going to one-shot you. The elixirs are really good for preventing one-shots from specific elements. And as you get higher on the Nightmare tier dungeons list, those elixirs will make a little bit of a difference. They will make a difference because it's percentage based, so it's going to prevent those one-shots. And ultimately, that's what you're trying to do. So on my Barbarian, what level did I go on? I think I killed it at 60... Is it 64 or 65? Either way, I actually no 62. I killed.
I was like,
I killed
you
it at 62.
killed one of it at 62 and one at 64, and I never can remember if it was your barbarian or your sorcerer, which one was which. But yeah,
the sorcerers. That's now you're reminding me that I killed the World Tier 4 boss at 62, and then I killed the same boss on my sorcerer at level 61. But for me to do that on the barbarian, for example, I had to pop the strongest fire elixir because the fire damage was just one-shotting me. So I had to find ways to kind of like prevent a one-shot from, because like you can dodge and do everything as perfect as you want. You're gonna get clipped. You just are. That's the whole. It's an ambush game, like Nan said. You're just lucky From Software's not making this game, because then you would just instantly die all the time. Yeah. But you're meant to die. That's what they're trying to do. They're not trying to be super nice to you. So elixirs, as Nan said, not only help for the experience. If you're fighting low content and you're just grinding through the game, they're really good. But if you're pushing something that's destroying you, or you really need it for that one boss, they do make a difference, like I said, especially when you're fighting content that's higher than you.
No, that's great. So then that kind of brings into the you've beat the campaign. What's next, right? So like there's, of course, you've got the kind of I almost refer to them as like dailies, right? Hey, here's the Tree of Whispers. Go do these dailies around the world. You know, clear out this cellar, get some points. Go clear this dungeon, get some points. Go kill these mobs, collect their souls, put it in this jar. You know, there's those. That's of course always easy ways to get experience. Always easy way to just get a loot cache. Like you're guaranteed that. You know, it's not like if you've gotten 3 quests done from that and you log off, you still have those 3 quests done. It's not like it goes away. It still ticks up your meter. So that's, you know, great to know. There's Legion events, which are kind of like outdoor dungeons is the way that, you know, I think of them, right? You get a group of people and you kind of split off into 2 paths. One group goes left, one goes right. You kill some mobs. You come together in the center. You kill a boss. Split off left, split off right. Kill some mobs. Come together, kill a boss, and you kind of run around in an area. It's better than a dungeon because you get to mount up, and so you can clear it very quickly if you're doing it the right way. And it's just kind of, you know, very quick, easy, efficient, great way to get a little piece of gear. You know, fun little event in the world. You know, definitely worth doing. World bosses are available to you now if you can get up there. There's 3 different ones. I have finally fought all 3 of them now. The gold one's the hardest.
Really?
Hands down, gold one's the hardest. Okay. Poison one, watch your feet like any other thing. Like the floor is lava. In this case, the floor is poison. Don't stand in poison. You'll be okay. Not so scary. The giant skeleton guy, a little annoying. He pulls, he pushes, right? He sends waves of bones and stuff around. Not so bad. The gold guy puts those pillars down. So, like, if you're a range character that you're like, I'm going to stay a little bit further back, it'll be great. Puts pillars down. You can't shoot through them. So you got to, like, maneuver your way closer to him. Yep. He's got cleave attacks. And then he has a slam attack that turns all those pillars into bombs that put those little circles around it. If you're standing in that circle, you instantly die.
Yeah.
So he's the hardest one I've saw. But the world bosses are great because you're guaranteed getting loot. You get some good experience. You know, you get to practice that maneuverability and boss battling that is mechanics that translate into other stuff throughout the game. Plus, I have yet to have a bad experience doing the world bosses because I've died and people are always there to resurrect you.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, everyone's very good about, someone's dead, boom, immediately res you. So, like, world boss is very fun. It's a good experience to kind of get that. You know, my favorite kind of post end game stuff are the Hell Tides. I love doing Hell Tides. You got here's 60 minutes. Go kill as much stuff. Collect these crystals. Put it in this chest. Spin the wheel. Get a bunch of loot out. Like, it's great. I have so much fun. Basically, the easiest way to do a Hell Tide, go find those world events, the little orange circles that are on the map, and kill it. Mark it using that right click we talked about on your mini map, and run off to go find another one, kill that, then run back to where your last marker was, and just bounce between the world events. You're going to get so much loot so quickly. I've done them solo, and I've been able to open like 4 or 5 chests solo. If you have a group of people and there's 2-3 of you doing it, it's going to be even better. There's also a secret loot chest out there. It's what, 175?
Yeah. Chest of Mysteries, I think it's called.
Chest of Mysteries. 175 of these shards that you need, and I've gotten about 3 legendaries from the Chest of Mysteries, where normally you're getting about 1 pretty much every time. Every now and again, you might just get, here's a couple yellows, right? But for the most part, you're almost guaranteed getting a legendary every time you open a chest. So I like the Helltide events because it feels like, you know, the amount of loot you're getting is worth it, at least if you're just trying to get yourself better gear right after you finish the game. If you're trying to push higher up and get even better stuff, that's kind of more into the dungeon aspect, which you can speak to more because you've been grinding out the dungeons a lot more. Yeah. And you get these keys and you can upgrade your keys and stuff. But why don't you talk a little bit about dungeons for people that might,
sure,
you know, want to know about that?
Yeah, happy to. I will give 2 quick little tips. One of them is a dungeon oriented tip, but I will say one of the things that's very, very helpful is if you're between the power, so you're like power creeping from one tier to the other, you just stepped into that tier, or you're going to tier 2 into tier 3 a bit early, or you're going tier 3 to tier 4 a bit early. When Dan was talking about the Tree of Whispers, they're really helpful because A, they do 2 things. A, the events are all over the map, so you're able to gather resources and do whatever you need to. They give you experience, and then you get a loot chest from the tree that can give you some really good items. So when you're transitioning from one tier to the other, I highly recommend that Tree of Whispers is one of the first things that you do a couple of times, because what it's going to do is it's going to give you the opportunity to upgrade a bunch of pieces, and the gear that you get from each tier jumps even higher, and it's exponentially noticeable how much better it is in tier 4 and tier 3. That's why a lot of people, including myself, try to rush tier 4, because you start getting something called ancestral items instead of sacred, and the sacred items cap out, I think, at like 725, and then the sacred items cap out at 725, whereas ancestral items cap out at 820, I believe, or 825, with certain items that are rare items cap out at 840. So the highest item you can get is 840 if you get a really, really rolled out, pimped out rare item, but you can't even start getting those items until you go into World Tier 4, which is why a lot of people rush. If you do transition into that particular tier a bit early, Tree of Whispers is going to help you tremendously. The second thing is Nightmare Dungeons. I know, and you'll watch a bunch of videos and things of people telling you, you spam this dungeon, you'll get a bunch of experience. You can do it in an hour. Ideally, this game was designed to be played by yourself or in a group. You're going to noticeably get way more experience when you're in a party of 2, 3, and 4 versus being by yourself. So if your goal is to try to get as high as possible with the most amount of, as high as possible with the least amount of time possible, you need to find a group up. You need to find people. Parties, people talk all the time, spam dungeons, do whatever. Nightmare Dungeons do give you a really good amount of experience, and I have personally found them to be the best for gear. I find a lot of legendaries and I found a lot of my uniques as rewards at the end from Nightmare Dungeons, or from just running and killing Nightmare Dungeons in general, because the mobs that have a higher chance of dropping uniques and legendary gear are elites. And elites tend to spawn more in specific dungeons and or in Nightmare Dungeons and Nightmare Dungeon events. The other tip is if you're hunting for, and I won't have time to go over all this, but there's multiple resources you can get online, and if that's something that, as you're listening to this, you post in the comments and you're like, hey, can you share some resources and things like that, we're happy to answer those. We encourage the listeners to interact with us in any way that they can. But there's resources that tell you that specific mobs have a higher chance of dropping certain types of gear. So, for example, right now I'm hunting the Crone Staff on my Druid because I haven't seen it drop yet. And I have come to find out that Goatmen have a higher chance of dropping staves. And if you're going to a dungeon like Champion's Demise that is literally all Goatmen and goat people and in general just goat demons, then you are improving your chances of getting that specific piece of gear if you're just running that over and over. So there's a particular unique that you're hunting. Certain mobs have a higher chance of doing it. There's resources available for you to find out which mobs those are, and then you can start farming those specific uniques that might potentially complete or make your build. And just in general, Nightmare Dungeons for gear and just overall experience feel good to me. It's what I enjoy. I play the game mostly solo. I've grouped up with Dan a bit. He's catching up, and once he does, we're just going to probably team up and push to 100, to be honest with you. But I think Nightmare Dungeons, if you're looking for specific gear, I would say Nightmare Dungeons is number 1, Hell Tides is number 2, and they go back and forth, to be honest with you. Hell Tides, Nan and I have tested. I've done Hell Tides by myself. He's done it by himself. Together, Hell Tides feel better, and with a bigger group, Hell Tides feel the best. Because you have multiple people scouting the map for events. So when Nan and I have played together, he'll go to like the east part of the map and I'll go to the west part. And he'll be like, I found an event here. And I'm like, cool, coming to you. And then after that event finish, I'm like, man, I'm going back. And then he goes south. So it just increases your reach throughout the map to be able to stack those things. And then we just go and hunt. And it's like, Nan's searching, like I'll tell Nan, I'm looking for chests, for example. So he'll put markers on chests that have chest pieces because that's what I'm hunting, and he's like, I'm hunting for jewelry. So it's a way to collaborate and get the most out of it because you have a limited amount of time in the Hell Tide. You want to optimize your time in that Hell Tide as much as possible. What's the other? I gave the elixir tip, and then I'm trying to think of what else. This was going to seem kind of stupid, but read the affixes on the dungeons, and don't be scared to just disenchant one that you know isn't going to work for you, because you can craft sigils to go into higher Nightmare Dungeons. So like you could as you get higher and higher, they start dropping more and more. I think Blizzard did a good job of making sure that you're not short on sigils ever, because it can get very depressing to be like, oh, I'm out of keys, like in Diablo 3. Whereas like, oh, cool, I can't run any more greater rifts because I have to go farm normal stupid keys to get more rifts. Whereas in this game, they're dropping, so they're replenishing themselves more than you're spending them.
Yes, yes.
So don't be afraid to disenchant those specifically for ones that feel like they're not going to work for you. So for example, on my druid, anything that says ranged attack diminishes your primary resource.
Your resource, yeah.
I delete those because I can't do anything. I sit there and I die. So like all of those get instantly deleted. But yeah, that would be my final tip: is don't be scared to get rid of them, and you get them enough, and you can craft more and more. They're not super, it's not super expensive to craft, and you'll get enough of them perpetually to keep going. That like if something's not good and you're not going to have a good time, disenchant it and go into the one that you can crush, because that's the whole point of the game.
Okay, so one last thing that I just thought of, actually, when you were talking about crafting and stuff, is the aspect of extraction.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Save your legendaries, because you're going to rip the aspect off of it and put it on new gear. Now, there's going to be legendaries you get that might be like, oh, this one creates a bubble when you get hit or something like that, or this deals more damage to elites. Like they have random ones that you're like, this doesn't matter. You're really looking for the ones that are very specific. Like in the case of like my necromancer, it's like I'm really looking for pet related stuff or stuff related to my alt. I've saved all of the blood related stuff. Even though I'm not going blood right now, I have a specific slot in my stash that I'm just throwing legendaries, or I'm just throwing aspects that I've extracted that I go, okay, I'm going to use these maybe in the future or stuff like that. Because as you push, get higher level, you'll still want those aspects on your gear to help get your builds to work the way that you want. So save your legendaries, because it's worth it. Yeah,
to that point real quick as well, a lot of the time, yellow items that you find are going to be better than the legendaries that drop. So it's okay to get so you could get a literal piece of shit staff that has a godly legendary tier roll, and you can extract that and put it on a yellow staff that is going to be like your end game staff, and imprint it onto that ability, and then you've created a super god mode tier item. I know that the Diablo 4 Discord people also sell yellow items of high quality and high rolls. So that's another, if you're that hardcore, it's an option for you to go through the Discord, and people sell items for couples of millions of gold to players to get your perfectly
you can trade yellow items. You cannot trade legendary items and stuff like that. So they've done it that way. And we're talking about, of course, when it comes to legendaries, that orange text that's at the bottom of the legendary that's like tells you that, you know, that's the part that you're ripping off of the item to be able to put on it. And if you put it on a yellow item, that yellow item becomes legendary. So it's not like you're just running around with a bunch of yellows. They become legendary. You're cool. Don't you worry about it. So I think that's kind of like the tips and tricks that we've kind of learned to help make it easier for newer players or players that are playing it and going, okay, what do I do now that I beat the game and where do I go from here? So here's a couple of tips. But you were talking about kind of what's next. Like, you know, you've watched a couple stuff, you've read a couple stuff, you've seen some stuff. You know, I expect there to be seasons for it. I don't know what they can do to keep those really hardcore players coming back and invested and interested in it. So, but I don't know. What do you think is next for Diablo? Like, I don't want them to do the same thing that they did in Diablo 3. I feel like they have to do something different or something, you know. But I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So it's funny. I've read a couple things and saw some stuff about like data mine things. Where I believe higher tier gems were data mined and the potential of a world tier 5. So harder content available. So I do think in the foreseeable future there's going to be higher tiers. It's funny you say that because I think I'd be curious to see what the formula is for where they take the game next, because the thing is like it almost, I don't know that it can't follow the Diablo 3 formula to some regard, because it's already kind of doing that. So like sigils and higher sigils are just greater rifts. It's how you push the greater tier content. You know, increasing the world tier, that's just higher level torment, which is in Diablo 3. So like I don't know that there's a way to like dynamically change it so that it's very different. But I do agree with you. I think there's a way to make it feel unique to itself and be, exclusive to Diablo 4 without it feeling like a Diablo 3 with another skin on top of it.
Right.
I think harder content. I think maybe some PvP-oriented stuff. And I think Seasons is really going to be more able to bring more out of the game. I think the season rewards being cool cosmetic things that you can get. Give the game a little bit of replayability. I think having specific skins for each class also makes it really cool, because then it's like, oh man, you love Necromancer, you're always going to play Necromancer, but shit, you might really like the Sorcerer skin, so you're going to play Sorc for that season because you want those rewards for it.
I'm a sucker for cosmetics. I'll tell you. Like, and that's I was like when I was like, all right, disenchant this to get this cool cosmetic. All right, I guess I'm grinding out and disenchanting all my stuff. I want all the cosmetics. Yep. Fill up that wardrobe. Let's go.
Yeah, I think one thing I would love to see. So like Uber Lilith was one of those like in-game things that they've added so that people can push like, you know, a super hard boss. I'd love to see more of that. So I'd love to see. No, I know that a lot of players were doing like soloing the world boss during beta, soloing a bunch of different things, and obviously the power scale was different at that point. I'd love to see more things like Uber Lilith. I'd love to see more things like world bosses that you can try to solo by yourself. Things like that to elevate the game, to give the hardcore player something to kind of like aim for, and also allow for everyone else kind of going at their own pace to have a different level of, okay, I'm ready to go here, I'm ready to move on to this level, while the hardcore players are trying to beat their faces against like Uber Lilith level 2, level 3, and just having harder content more readily available for people to play.
I like it. All right, we're pretty much, we've gone over our time because Diablo is awesome, and I will say, to kind of wrap up my thoughts on Diablo, it's like this is the first game that I've played in a long time that I have been so invested and like all in on. Like I have put in the hours and been grinding and playing and still coming back almost every day that I'm like, you know what, I'll do a little bit of grinding, do some questing, do some hell tides, do some dungeons. Like, I'm still enjoying the game I'm nowhere near level 100, so it's like I still got plenty of time. And now that I've gotten to this point, I can kind of enjoy it in a different way than I was enjoying it at the beginning, and it feels good to continue to be playing it. I feel like, at least at this point.
Truth be told, we're probably going to play after this recording.
Yeah, exactly.
Who are we kidding? We're after that, we might hit Zach up for some TFT, but we're probably going to play this. We're going to play this later. Yeah, I think it's something that it's just been fun to play. It's going to be continuing to be fun to play, and overall for me, man, I think they've done a good job with it. I think it was one of the most anticipated games for this year. A lot of people were looking forward to it. As with anything in life, people are disappointed, people are unhappy, but you can't make everyone happy. Blizzard, you made 2 people here happy. So if it's worth anything, we're going to keep playing. We're enjoying the game. I look forward to seeing what happens with it next. And Nan's right. For me, it's been something I've really grinded probably a bit more than I should have, but I've really been into it as well. Like, I just enjoy playing each of the different classes, taking it at my own pace, and really, what was my closing thought in this whole thing is what was really positive and demoralizing at the same time for me, Nan, was when they finally revealed that the super rare items are so rare that almost no one's going to find them. Where it's like, all right, there's no rush. I'm never going to find it. So what am I trying to get to 100 for? It's like, there's no rush.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Right? It's like, all right, it's good to know that it's out there. It's not going to be me that finds this.
Yeah, it's like the One Ring when, somebody in Canada found it. I was like, oh, that's nice for that guy. I was never going to find it myself, but it was so nice.
Not going to be me, yeah. All right. So normally we would do kind of a quick wrap up. Hey, what are you watching? What are you seeing? So let's just do a quick one. All right. Synopsis. Is there anything new that you're watching? I'll start at least to kind of wrap up the episode. New season of The Witcher just came out. It's the last season with Henry Cavill on it. So I just started that. Watched the very first episode today. It's always great seeing him swing a sword around. So I like it. I don't know if I'm gonna watch the one with Hemsworth running around, because I thought it was like, oh, maybe he'll be, there's other Witchers in the world, maybe he'll be, but they're like, no, he's gonna be just replacing Henry Cavill, and he's gonna be Droll, and I'm like, that doesn't I don't know how that's gonna work. But so that's what I'm watching right now, in addition to playing all the Diablo that's going on here. But what are you watching? What are you playing? What are you reading? What you got going on?
Well, so now that you've said that, I didn't know that came out, so that's what I'm going to be watching. Yeah. My fiance and I really like The Witcher, and we've really enjoyed it. Fun fact for you, Nan, Henry Cavill has, I believe, tried out or auditioned. That's the word I'm looking for. Jesus. Auditioned to be James Bond. So, yeah, supposedly rumors are that his audition went really, really well. So, I would love to see him as James Bond. But let's see. Witcher's probably going to be the one thing that we watch. I think we've been watching a little bit of what was that show? We just watched Flaming Hot on Disney Plus.
Was that
Flaming Hot Cheetos?
Flaming Hot Cheetos.
Yeah.
I saw the trailers for it. I was like, that looks really good.
It was a fun movie, and if you're looking for something
Okay.
fun that you just kind of throw up there and kind of enjoy it was fun. It's not magical. It's not going to blow your mind, but
no, but just like a nice movie to just be. There's good to just watch. Like, hey, it's just a nice movie. Here's enjoy it.
Yeah,
have fun with it. I like that.
Yep.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, of course, thanks for tuning in and listening, everybody, or watching some of the stuff that we've put up. As always, you can, check out all the content anywhere that you can be able to find podcasts, as well as other little clips that we've been posting up, of course, across all the social media stuff on Nan Man's Nerd Corner. But, let us know what classes you guys are playing. Are you guys enjoying the game still? What are you grinding out? What are you guys doing? Leave those comments. Let us know. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in, watching, listening, and we'll see you guys next game.
Take care, everybody.